we'll go round in a minute.
Here we go. Well, first of all, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Denise Catley. I'm one of the education officers for Viridor Lang, who hold the contract for the waste for all of Greater Manchester in England.
Could you quickly summarise what this plan does here?
Right. Well, where we are at the moment, this is one of our 3 education centres where visitors, schools and other groups can come along and find out what happens to the waste. But we're next door to our thermal recovery facility, which is a facility where we burn the waste and we use the heat from the burning of the waste to generate electricity and also ensure that the gases are clean so that we don't cause any problems to the environment.
What kind of people come here?
To the education centre, all sorts of people from age 7 upwards. We don't have any visitors under the age of 7 because of health and safety reasons, and it's quite difficult for people to understand. But we get lots of primary schools, so that's in this country it's up to age 11. So we get lots of schools. They'll come for a full day visit. So they'll come in the morning, and we'll talk about what they're going to see. They go out and visit the site. They watch a film about what we do with waste, and then we have lots of nice activities we can do in the afternoon. We get community groups coming just for a couple of hours to find out what goes on the site, and also we've been doing some open days for members of the public, so people who live nearby who just wondered what happens to their waste can come along and find out what happens here.
What kind of impact does this have on people to come here and actually see what happens to their waste?
Well, we always ask people to evaluate their visit, so let us know exactly what they think of what's happened. And so many people they don't realise what happens to their waste once it's left their house. Once the trucks have picked up their rubbish, they don't realise what has happened, and just standing there seeing it is a really, really big impact. And they always say to us that they've learned a lot and they'll do something new. We actually ask children, primary school children, to take home a little leaflet and ask and tell their parents what they've done, what they've learned, and ask them to ask their parents if they do anything differently. And again, we get a really good feedback from people saying that yes, they're going to do things differently. They're going to particularly to recycle more and recycle better. So we know that what we do does have an influence on people.
Do you think people are good at separating or sorting their waste?
Again, it varies tremendously. We have some people who are really committed, often people who do actually come here and they ask us questions, and they are very, very good at it. But again, there are other people who just don't care, and they'll either just throw it all into one bin, or some areas they're lucky if they'll even put it in the bin. There are a lot of people who just don't care.
So Great Britain in general, do you think they're aware of the scale of the problem of waste in our society?
Some people are. Certainly some people are, but there's a lot. I would say it's probably like everywhere else. There are a lot of people. If it doesn't affect them, then they won't do anything about it. And it's very often, there's no point in saying things like most people, well, in the UK, we pay for our waste to be looked after through our council tax. People don't realise how much of the council tax goes towards that, so therefore they're a bit detached from it. They don't really understand. So again, same answer really, is that some people do, and some people are really enthusiastic, really take it on board, and other people don't care.
Did working here have an impact on your behaviour?
Yes, yeah. I think I understand more about what I should be putting in my recycling and why and where it goes. I've always been aware of it, but until you actually see the impact, it's like anything in life, isn't it? Until you actually see how that impacts, what happens to it afterwards, you don't really understand. So you might think you're doing the right thing, but sometimes you're not. So yes, definitely. And I'm always terrified of going into supermarkets and taking a plastic bag if I've forgotten to bring my canvas bags, because I'm terrified that some child's going to go, "You're the lady who talks to us about recycling and you've got a plastic bag." So I have to be on my best behaviour, definitely.
What kind of tips do you have for people? How can they reduce the waste, particularly stuff that cannot be recycled, maybe?
I mean, reducing is obviously very important. you have the choice. It's up to you. If you go into a supermarket, I mean, I think it's maybe different in other countries, but in the UK, if you go into a supermarket, if you're, say, buying apples, you can buy them loose or you can buy them all wrapped up in plastic. You have that choice. If you go into a local market, maybe you don't even have to buy them in a plastic bag. You can just get them to put them directly into your shopping bag. So we have them choices. Things like eggs, a lot of people, you can buy eggs in plastic containers. They don't cost any different to cardboard ones. Cardboard ones can be recycled. Just think about how we buy things. I know personally I used to buy all my meat from a farm, and I'd go and buy very little packaging. They'd just wrap it up for me. Nicely for them, the couple who ran the farm retired, and I had to start buying my meat from a supermarket. And the amount of packaging, my bin was so much, my kitchen bin particularly, because you notice your kitchen bin, every time you cook a meal, my bin's full because of all the trays that they put the meat in. So, you know, you can go to a butcher or you can go to a farm and get it without all that packaging. So supermarkets have got a lot to answer for. But and say if we refuse to buy it, then they'll rethink how they do things. I've heard of a few people. I know a lady in particular who she decided that she would try to make no waste, and she said how difficult it was. I mean, there are some things you can't, like toothbrushes. What do you do? What do you do with your old toothbrush? You know, you can't. There are certain things that you can't do, and one of the things that sort of stuck in my mind was that somebody told me that they took her onto an actual landfill site. She'd reduced her waste as much as she could, and then there was just a few things, and they made her stand there and just drop it on the landfill site. And she felt like it was littering. It really gave a big impact of, you know, how much rubbish that you actually make, and that was when she tried to reduce as much as she could. So I think they're doing a wonderful thing, these people who try to, and they're highlighting it. Not everybody's not going to do that, but if people could say, well, I could do that, I could make small inroads to it, we'll get there.
Okay, the final question would be, what happens to your residual waste?
Right, unfortunately in the UK at the moment, and certainly in Greater Manchester, at least half of it is going into landfill, so that's being buried in the ground. We try to do it responsibly and capture the methane, because methane is a extremely powerful greenhouse gas. So we try to do it as responsibly as possible. But obviously it's not sustainable. We can't carry on doing that. We haven't got the land to carry on doing that, and we're just wasting our precious resources. Burning it is not very popular in the UK. It's a good way to deal with residual waste. Again, a lot of people don't like it because they feel it doesn't encourage people to think of reducing, and they think that it'll make recycling rates reduce, that people won't recycle, which it's been proved in other parts of Europe that's actually not true. So we burn very little, and we're investing a lot of money in a new technology to digest the waste, which works pretty much like landfill, where it's just more contained, and the waste is digested by bacteria, releases the methane, and we use that to generate electricity.
Do you think that people are aware of the fact that recycling is actually downcycling, and that the product that you get in the end is always of lower quality than what you began with?
No, certainly not in the UK. It's a lot of people are led to believe that it's the ideal way, that it's, you know, that this it'll solve our problems, and of course it won't, because as you say, it's always a lower quality product, and there's a lot of energy, a lot of chemicals involved in actually recycling things. I think it would be nice if we went back to how things used to be when I was young, when things like, you know, everybody had a milkman. I still do, but, you know, somebody brings a glass bottle of milk to your doorstep, you use the milk, you rinse the bottle out, he takes it, it's washed and cleaned and refilled. You know, drinks, things like Coca-Cola, you used to take them to the shop, they were replaced. Everything you bought from the shop, most things were just wrapped up in a piece of greaseproof paper or whatever. We had hardly any packaging. And people used to mend things as well. That's another thing. We were talking about electronic equipment. Years ago, you could take something to be repaired. Nobody repairs things anymore because it's cheaper to buy a new one. Yeah, Alison had a little keyboard that her daughters used to play on, and one of the keys had stuck, and she took it back to the shop, and it was cost about £100. And they says, "Oh well, it's not worth repairing. It'll cost as much to repair it as it would to buy a new one." She said, "Well, I don't want a new one. I'd like to have that one repaired." And so she left it with them, and then they rang back and says, "Sorry, we can't repair it." She had to buy a new one because it's just too much trouble to repair things, which is not good.
Do you happen to know? The other day, I tried to. I asked my organic food store around the corner if I could actually bring a container and then just have them put my sausages or cold cuts or whatever in that container instead of getting some kind of plastic wrapping or whatever. And they said they were not allowed to for hygienic reasons. Do you happen to know whether this is the case in Great Britain too?
I would think there is probably something similar to that. There are a lot of hygiene rules, aren't there? And they won't allow you to. I mean, it was not that long ago that I went into a well-known store in Manchester and asked them not to put things in a plastic bag and to put it in my ordinary shopping bag. And they says, "Well, no, because somebody will think you've been stealing it because it's not in one of our bags." So and they're very, very nervous when it comes to food. So I would think that that's probably the case here in the UK, that they wouldn't allow you to do that.
What are the alternatives to plastic bags? Do you happen to know?
It depends what it's for. I mean, for plastic bags for carrying things, obviously they're fabric bags that you can get that are an alternative.
Like vegetables at the supermarket, for example.
Well, I mean, going back years ago, they used to actually make like little boxes out of wood. You used to get strawberries and things in like little wooden punnets. They could make that out of it, or something that's paper based. I know there's a lot of controversy regarding things made out of like plastics made out of cornstarch and things like that, because they actually, the impact of manufacturing them is actually even worse than making sort of plastic from oil. So
and wasting food.
And we're wasting food, yes. So I don't think a lot of these sort of compostable, biodegradable cornstarch things are maybe that good, but to make them out of paper, and maybe, like you said, a lower grade paper. But again, then we get these food hygiene problems in the UK. Many years ago, fish and chips, if you went in, it was wrapped up in newspaper.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
Is that anymore?
No, they can't wrap it in newspaper. They wrap it in blank paper, but it's new paper. It's not there. Don't reuse newspapers. Okay. So that's interesting. Yes, very interesting.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I hope that was useful for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks.